Another alternative to Piaget theory is Vygotsky theory. Now, let's talk about the zone of proximal development. Zone of proximal development is the range of tasks that the child finds it difficult to attain alone, but can be done with the assistance provided by the more knowledgeable others. Note that more knowledgeable others can be anyone who has a higher ability than the learner, for example, the teacher, parents, or even their classmates. Next, scaffolding. Scaffolding means changing the level of support for learning and problem solving. When a child is learning a new task, more supports are needed. The level of support will decrease as the child's competency increases. Scaffolding allows children to attain the upper limits of the zone of proximal development. Language and thoughts. Vygotsky viewed private speech as guiding children's thinking and action. After transition period, children are able to translate their private speech to their inner thoughts. Vygotsky argued that the primary function of speech, both for the adult and for the child, is the function of communication, social contact, influencing surrounding individuals. Lastly, social-cultural perspective. Vygotsky believed that teacher needs to understand about the culture of the child's environment to understand the child. Children learn through acting and thinking provided by their culture, and master tasks that are culturally important to interaction.
The Information Processing Model, IPM. IPM is a model that explains how information is received, stored in memory, and accessed or retrieved. IPM consists of three main components: sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. Sensory memory and short-term memory enable people to manage limited amounts of incoming information during initial processing, whereas long-term memory serves as a permanent repository for knowledge. Sensory memory is the initial stage of stimuli perception. Sensory memory screens incoming stimuli and processes only those stimuli that are most relevant at the present time. For example, drivers on a highway are constantly bombarded with stimuli. The driver processes only information that is relevant to safe driving. After stimuli enter sensory memory, they are either forwarded to short-term memory or deleted from the system. The short-term memory, STM, is a temporary storage facility. The information entering STM is just long enough for use. To keep information activated in short-term memory requires that the person repeat the information in his or her mind. The long-term memory is a permanent storage facility which has unlimited capacity and memories. The two processes in facilitating information into long-term storage are rehearsal and elaboration. By retrieval process, information could be transferred from long-term to short-term memory. Retrieval refers to processes that enable individuals to search memory and access information for active processing in working memory.
Classical conditioning. Classical conditioning is a type of learning in which an organism learns to connect or associate stimuli so that a neutral stimuli becomes associated with a meaningful stimuli and acquires the capacity to elicit a similar response. The theory was discovered accidentally by in his experiment, Pavlov used a bell as his neutral stimuli. Wherever he gave food to his dogs, he also rang a bell. After a number of repeats of this procedure, he tried the bell on his own, and the dog responds to the bell. In that case, the dog had learned to associate between the bell and the food, and a new behavior had been learned. Because this response was learned or conditioned, it is also a conditional response. The neutral stimuli has become a conditional stimulus. In other words, classical conditioning is a kind of learning that occurs when a conditional stimulus is paired with an unconditional stimulus.
Operant conditioning was coined by behaviorist B.F. Skinner. It is a form of learning in which the consequences of behavior change in the probability that behavior will occur. It is based on a simple premise which behavior is influenced by the consequences that follow. The key concepts in operant conditioning are reinforcement and punishment. Reinforcement is an event that strengthens or increases the behavior it follows, while punishment is a consequences that decrease the probability that a behavior will occur. There are two types of reinforcement, positive and negative reinforcement, and also there are two types of punishment, positive and negative punishment. In positive reinforcement, the frequency of a response increases because it is followed by a rewarding stimulus such as praise. In negative reinforcement, the frequency of a response increases because it is followed by the removal of an aversive stimulus. In order to be effective in delivering a reinforcer, Skinner developed the concept of schedule of reinforcements, which are fixed ratio, fixed interval, variable ratio, and variable interval. FR and FI are predictable, while VR and VI are unpredictable. Punishment is similar to reinforcement in that both are defined by its effect. It also has two types, positive and negative. Positive punishment works by presenting a negative consequences after an undesired behavior is exhibited, making the behavior less likely to happen in the future. While negative punishment happens when a certain desired stimulus is removed after a particular undesired behavior is exhibited, resulting in the behavior happening less often in the future. In conclusion, positive and negative reinforcements are to increase the behavior, while positive and negative punishment are to decrease the behavior.